Hi guys, long time no see and welcome to another Narnia Life episode. There hasn't been any news. There hasn't been any news for quite a while now. As Sean saying that I haven't done one of these videos in quite some time. But I've came up with an idea to do a couple more videos here and there. I've still got my character sort of profile videos all to do for you. I've only done the Pevenses at the moment, so I've still got all the other characters to do in the entire series. But I'm going to do a video today, as you can tell from the title, talking about the history of the Narnia adaptations, specifically TV and film. So I thought it'd be a cool sort of discussion just to go over the history and sort of the controversies and everything sort of up from the very first adaptation that we know of up until currently where we are with the Netflix series. So obviously, spoiler warning for this video, there will be spoilers for the books and all the adaptations, so if you haven't read the books or seen any of the adaptations, just beware there will be spoilers. I will be going into some spoilers as I discuss this topic. And I will not be including the theatre or radio productions in this. I might maybe do a separate video on the radio theatre productions. So these are specifically the adaptations for TV and for film. So let's begin the journey all the way back in 1967. So this was 10 years after the last Battle book was written. So this was when the first adaptation was released, which was this, Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, the 1967 TV serial. So this is the first one that I will be discussing. So it was a 10-part serial made by a company. I believe at the time they were called ABC Television. I believe now they're called ABC Studios. I don't really know any of the work that they've done recent years, but I know they did the box set for the Lost TV series, which was about loads of people on an island. I believe they worked on that. I don't know if they worked on all 6 seasons, but I do believe they worked on the series at some point. But yeah, back in 1967, this was one of their first productions, and basically, this is the story of what happened. So it was a 10-part TV series shown on ITV. So it was shown for 10 weeks because it was an episode once per week. And it was in black and white, as many shows still were in 1967. I believe around that time, this was roughly when colour TV was just starting to come in. But really, to have coloured shows at that point, you needed like a huge budget. Because I believe like the TV series with like Adam West and Burt Ward for Batman, that was in colour, and that was filmed like. That was released 2 years after this adaptation. But obviously it was done by a huge company at that point. So the story was, obviously it was, all the episodes were in black and white. They were shown on ITV for 10 weeks, so 1 episode a week. And each episode lasted roughly around 30 minutes. But if you take out the commercials and ad breaks, you're talking 20-25 minutes roughly. So obviously, of course, I've personally not seen all 10 episodes. Obviously, I wasn't born in the 60s. So currently, how can you view this TV serial today? Now, like many adaptations in sort of the 60s and even going into the 70s, even late 70s, basically studios, rather than buy new videotape, many TV series were filmed on videotape, so rather than buy a ton of videotapes, which would cost them money, and they'd have issues with storing everything that they did, basically to save money and to save on storage problems, they reused a lot of the old videotapes. So like they filmed the TV series on a videotape, and then they kept it for a little while, and then it either got junked, so just thrown away, or it got wiped and just something else was recorded on it. So obviously the original thing that was on it was lost. Now luckily, this sort of practice that was going on in sort of the 60s and 70s, that got stopped, I believe, sort of late 70s, and that was to do with Doctor Who, because this sort of late 70s was around the time home media was becoming popular. You know, you had obviously VHS tapes, and obviously with Doctor Who, they wanted to go back and obviously re-release a lot of, all of Hartnell and all of Patrick Troughton's episodes, and that's when they found so many episodes were missing. So luckily they stopped the practice, I believe, in sort of the late 70s, I believe. Sort of mid to late 70s they stopped this practice. But unfortunately, when The Lion, the Witch and Wardrobe, the first adaptation, was made, this practice was still going on. So unfortunately it was one of many victims that has missing episodes. Obviously Doctor Who being probably the main one. I mean, currently, as of 2020, as of this video, there is still 97 episodes missing. You know, Top of the Pops, that was hugely affected. There's tons of footage and episodes missing from the Top of the Pops. There's many others as well, but unfortunately the 1967 adaptation of Narnia is also lost, apart from 2 episodes. So currently, out of the 10 episodes, 2 episodes exist today. We have episode 1 and episode 8. Episode 8 is the one that I have on a disc on DVD. Episode 1 I can't seem to find anywhere, but I'm assuming it does exist, and I'm assuming it exists in the company's archives. It does say on when you research it that episode 1 exists, so I'm guessing they've got it in their archives, but I can't find it anywhere online. So yeah, so it's a bit unfortunate. I would have loved to have, if the 10 episodes did exist, I would have loved to have seen all 10. But unfortunately, unless someone's got a copy of one of the episodes hidden in their attic, I don't think we're going to see it anytime soon. But stranger things have happened. I mean, Doctor Who, they found missing episodes on the 50th anniversary, so who knows? Somebody could have a copy somewhere. Old TV shows and footage are still being found now, so... And they are being restored. It's just depending on where they're being stored, if they're in a good condition to restore them. I mean, film tapes, videotapes are very fragile. The slightest scratch and that's it. It can be gone forever. It might not be able to even be restored at that point. So moving on, so we're talking about the second adaptation now, which is to date the only animation for the Narnia sort of series. So this was released 12 years after the 1967 version. It was done by an Australian company, which does kind of amuse fans because obviously the books are British. So obviously watching the animation, you do have Australian voice actors voicing the characters. I've personally not seen the animation all the way through. I've seen sort of clips of it on YouTube, but I've not actually sat down and watched the full thing. Eventually I will do, because obviously that's the only adaptation I don't really know too much about it. But hopefully I will review it at some point on the channel. But yeah, I don't really know much else about it. I mean, obviously it had a very sort of 70s cartoon look to it. But that's really all I know about the animation. I'd love to find out more. I definitely want to watch it at some point. So moving on, we now are talking about the BBC adaptations. And obviously the BBC was the first company to produce more than just the one. So the BBC basically, up to this point, the 2 adaptations that had been done was just like The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. But the BBC decided to do 4 out of the 7 books. So they did Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader and The Silver Chair. The other 3 never got made by the BBC, unfortunately. I think they have confirmed that 1, it was to do with money, and 2, the other 3 books are quite challenging and quite hard to adapt. I know the BBC, there wasn't really any criticism with the BBC. I know that, again, they used actors in costumes. I know with Aslan they did use an animatronic, I believe. But there wasn't really any criticism or anything that came out of the BBC adaptations. The only thing that really came out of it was it did confuse a lot of fans. And this being because they, with Barbara Kellerman, who played the White Witch in the BBC Lion, Witch and Wardrobe, she was reused. She played a hag in Prince Caspian, and then she played the Lady of the Green Kirtle in The Silver Chair, and that did confuse fans, and it still does to this day. People reading the books and believing the White Witch and the Lady of the Green Kirtle are the same person, just in different forms, which isn't true, but this is where the confusion basically started from. Personally, I love the BBC adaptations. I know they're cheesy and corny, but at the time they were made, you can't really blame them. Personally, Silver Chair is my favourite out of the four, and luckily, the whole situation with them junking episodes and wiping over episodes luckily has stopped by the time the BBC did these adaptations. So, moving on, it wasn't until sort of the early 2000s when the Lord of the Rings films were being released. This was when rumours started to circulate that the rights for the Narnia books had been sold and that there were going to be Narnia films being produced. Again, one of the many similarities between Narnia and Lord of the Rings. You have the Lord of the Rings films being released in the early 2000s, and then all of a sudden you have rumours that Narnia films are going to be produced. I mean, the series does have a lot of similarities. As many of you guys already know, the books were written around roughly the same time. They're both fantasy. So they do have many similarities between them. So eventually, in December 2005, we did get The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Personally, I love this film. It wasn't a perfect film, it wasn't a perfect adaptation, it was a fair adaptation. It still is my favourite out of the new trilogy. I know there was some criticism after the film came out. There was criticism over the river scene, which wasn't in the book, that was added for the film. There was criticism about them kind of cutting down the statue scene because they wanted to get back to the battle. There was little criticisms, but nothing too major from what I remember. The only thing I really remember was I think Nicole Kidman was originally going to be cast as Jadis, but I don't actually know if that was a rumour or a hoax or if it just turned out to be untrue. But obviously, it was Tilda Swinton that got the role in the end. So after December 2005, it was confirmed we were getting a sequel. So 2.5 years later, we did get The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian. Huge criticisms when this film came out. Obviously, the casting of Ben Barnes. People were saying he was too old. I think they cast Ben Barnes because it would be easier for them for Voyage of the Dawn Treader. They won't have to get a brand new actor. So he could just reprise the role in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which is what happened. There was whole controversy surrounding Jadis appearing in Prince Caspian. I remember something. I don't know if it was possibly Glumpuddle that was on set. I remember watching his old videos here on YouTube discussing when Prince Caspian were coming out, and I'm pretty sure he said that there was some sort of rumour, or it had been confirmed. It had been confirmed that Tilda Swinton had been seen on set, and I remember that when the first trailer dropped online, I think Glumpuddle and his brother sort of kind of reacted to it, and they were shocked and angry when Tilda Swinton appeared in the trailer. Thankfully, the scene wasn't as bad as we feared. It was just an expansion of what had happened in the book. In the book they do try and summon the White Witch, whereas in the film they kind of expanded on that scene. So visually the White Witch did appear. She was stuck in a big wall of ice. She wasn't alive, she was kind of like a ghost figure. I do apologise, there is a motorbike, quad bike going off in the background on the street, if you can hear anything. There were many more criticisms. I mean, obviously there was the castle raid battle that wasn't in the book. It was hinted at before the Perences arrived. It's hinted in the book that there was many battles between the Narnians and the Telmarines, where the Narnians lost a ton of soldiers. So that kind of hinted towards a line in the book. The only difference was that the Perences were there. I know that Prince Caspian did get a lot of criticism for certain things, and again, one of the main criticisms was the whole Susan Caspian romance, which fans are still annoyed about to this day. From the Narnia adaptations, fans are still so annoyed with that. But overall, I mean, Prince Caspian. When I first read the book, I thought it would be hard to adapt it. So they kind of tore the book up and kind of rewrit it or redid it in a way that would work for film. So I don't think it was a perfect adaptation, but it wasn't a terrible adaptation. There was stuff that wasn't needed. Um, but overall, I still enjoyed Prince Caspian. So that was that. And then, so basically, what happened after Prince Caspian came out was that the film didn't do terrible. It did okay for a sequel, but Walt Disney apparently didn't think so, and they ended up dropping the franchise, which now left a space open for another company to come in and carry on with the films. So I believe Warner Brothers was originally interested, then Fox was interested, and ultimately Fox did end up buying the series, which is now technically owned by Disney, which I will talk about in a second. So basically what had happened was, Fox took over the franchise. We got a new director. Andrew Adamson had directed the first two. Michael Apted had directed the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. So in December of 2010, we did get the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Huge controversies surrounding this film. They made it basically a Save Narnia type of story. That's not what it is in the book. In the book, it's just about their personal journeys, the personal adventure of going out, exploring, finding what happened to the seven missing lords, and ultimately, possibly in this adventure, they could reach Aslan's island, Aslan's world, or Aslan's country. So that was like the main focus of the book, whereas the movie, it did have that element of the Seven Lords, but they added in this whole green mist, and the Seven Lords had a sword each that would help defeat the green mist. So they kind of made it from just a personal exploration story, adventure story, to a save the world story. There was a lot of problems with them basically saying that there was a lot of sort of telling, no showing. It was basically characters saying, "Oh, look at this, look at that," and that was a constant problem throughout the film. Obviously the whole thing with Jadis once again appearing as part of the whole Green Mist story. Tempting Edmund. Why would Edmund get tempted? He overcome the White Witch in Prince Caspian when he destroyed the Wall of Ice. Why would he sort of revert back to being tempted by her again? There is some very nitpicky things for Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I personally didn't mind Voyage of the Dawn Treader as a standalone film, but obviously me comparing it to the book, it's a terrible adaptation. It's probably one of the worst. But as a standalone movie, I'm not saying that I hate the film. I just hate the way that it's adapted from the book. I just hate the way that it was adapted. But a standalone film, I didn't mind it. So that is currently all the adaptations up to date. So what is happening now? After the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, the Silver Chair film was kind of hinted at the end of the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. When Jill Paul came for a visit. Originally, I think the Silver Chair film was originally greenlit. Then they kind of did a full 180 and said, no, we're not making Silver Chair, we're making The Magician's Nephew, which shocked a lot of fans. Then nothing really happened with that, so then they kind of went back to the Silver Chair idea, because I remember this poll came out where they said that they wanted names for the Lady of the Green Kirtle. They wanted fans to submit their ideas for names, and then that name was going to be used in the final film. So there were kind of little hints of news coming out. Nothing confirmed. And then years pass. It just seemed that the Narnia franchise were kind of dead at this point. And then all of a sudden, in October 2018, so we're coming up to 2 years. Bear this in mind, 2 years since this was announced. Well, coming up to 2 years, that Netflix announced that they were making Narnia adaptations. Personally, I believe they've announced this only because, Amazon Prime have got the Lord of the Rings TV series coming up, so potentially, as competition, Netflix wanted the Narnia franchise. So when it was announced that Netflix had bought the rights, it's the first time the rights to all 7 books has been sold to one publisher. So the rights to make all 7 films are now owned by Netflix. So in the 2 years, we haven't really had much news, but we've had like a director announced, I believe. No, that wasn't for the Netflix adaptations. I believe that was for the original Silverchair film that was originally planning on coming out. The Silverchair film is presumed cancelled at this point. I'm assuming it's presumed cancelled in favour of the Netflix adaptations. It doesn't make sense to do Netflix adaptations and then have a random Silverchair film coming out as well. Not to mention it's been like 10 years end of this year since Voyage of the Dawn Treader came out, so it wouldn't really make sense, to be fair. But yeah, we had like a screenwriter announced. I know for the supposedly Silverchair film, there was originally a casting rumour for Millie Bobby Brown. Nothing really came of that. And that is basically where we are right now. I've looked on Narnia Web, there hasn't really been any major news regarding the Netflix adaptations or what's happening with them. I believe Douglas Gresham, I think the last I read, he had some sort of meeting and he said that he was still waiting on Netflix, really. But Netflix announced this project 2 years ago and nothing's really come of it. Are they maybe just waiting until the Lord of the Rings TV series comes out and then all of a sudden we'll get Narnia news? Potentially, who knows? But yeah, there's been no casting, nothing like that. No trailers, we haven't even got like a director, nothing of them yet. So that is where we are currently right now. So the history of the Narnia adaptations is very confusing. But I've just thought it would make a good video just to talk about them. I might eventually do a video discussing like the radio and the theatre productions. That'll be kind of cool to do. And I do have all my character, the life and times of insert character. I do have all them to do as well. I do eventually want to get around to doing more characters for that. But yeah, so I haven't uploaded. I thought I'd do this quick video for you guys, so I hope you enjoyed. Obviously, let me know what you think. What could the future of the Narnia adaptations hold? Who knows? We'll have to just wait and see. So I hope you're all keeping safe, keeping well with what's going on, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye guys.